did sculpt though.
We sculpted.
Yeah, that was tight. We did like a swap off where we both have like 25 minutes.
We did it with like an anteater and a candle.
Yeah.
The flower dragon.
Yeah. Class.
Oh, dude. Remember Backward Song?
Yeah. Was it something?
Oh, yeah.
Low key.
Oh, low key. Yeah.
All right, guys, we're about ready to get started. So if you guys have food or drinks, go ahead and finish that up, Brian. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started because some of you guys are still in class and we're on our dinner break right now. And we're really excited about this. What we're about to talk about tonight. The gentlemen that we have up on stage to go over this. Just real quick, if you have your cell phones, please turn them to silent. We don't want to interrupt this.
Oh, yeah.
If you have an emergency call from your agent, we've got the big break, please go outside. If you're sleeping or doing something else, please take that outside too. Let's show some.
So I had actually traveled around to several different schools, art institutes and stuff, and searched out a curriculum to get into the game industry or the VFX industry, and I didn't find in any of those schools the program that I was looking for. I was looking for something a little more high grade. I was looking for something that had a lot to offer. And so I came here, and I think at the time it was Bobby Milley that was the...
That's correct. Bobby Milley was a
Right.
program director.
And he gave me a tour and sold me on this school, and boy, it changed my life.
Chris.
I actually stumbled across the school by chance. I used to have a friend that lived with me, and he was using my cell phone at the time. And I got a call from one of the recruiters or whatever, like, hey, you want to go to school? Or you want to be an artist? I was like, I guess. And then I missed the first tour, and then like, hey, you missed the first tour, and then finally got me in. I was at the tail end of the tour. It was just Bobby talking to some older gentleman about 3D printer. I'm just like, yeah, 3D printing. And I was just like, I have no idea what the hell he's talking about. And he's like, hey, you want to go to school? I was just like, yeah, I guess I'm going to go to school. And I enrolled, and my first class was Photoshop. I was like, I'm going to be a painter. And then second class was mine. I was like, I don't know what the hell's going on. And then it kind of just accelerated from there. I got super close with these two guys almost immediately, plus Pete. And we always worked together, and that's kind of it. And I mean, I always had an artist background, so, but yeah, it's crazy. It wasn't intentional.
That's awesome. Lewis.
Explains a lot, Chris. So I also was looking around. I checked out a few other programs and settled on LA Film because it seemed like this is where the jobs were going to be. So it made sense to go to school out here and then get work out here, and it's worked out.
So you guys are in school at this time. I think 18-month program. So you guys would have started right around 2012, right? Mm-hmm. 2012. And then so you guys are staying together in what we used to call back then cohorts. And you guys get to the end of the program, and what's your thoughts? Like, where are you guys going? Your identities are being shaped, and some of you guys are sculptors, some of you guys are like tech artists, some of you guys are, I know you described yourself as an environment artist, which is what you are today. What's on your mind? I'll start with Louis. What's on your mind? Like, how do you take that next step?
That's a good question, because we had the one job that we all worked on together that was really cool, and we all had this great opportunity. But the next step wasn't as obvious, because it wasn't just like, there wasn't another job with that studio immediately. I think we all kind of went separate ways for a minute. So it was really unclear, and we were all helping each other out. Like, we were all looking around for work. We all found work, but we would all kind of check in with each other and be like, oh, hey, I got emailed by, this recruiter, or at that point, we weren't even getting really contacted by recruiters. It was just like random projects. So we were just really scrappy. But
for random projects and being like, hey, Lou, do you got some free time? Or Chris, you got some extra time? And just put together what we could put together to stay afloat until something else comes.
So then for Greg, finding your identity at the end of the program, how did you get there? Like, how did you make a decision, the thing that you're doing now, that's what you're going to go into?
What I do now had actually nothing to do with what I wanted to do when I got out. When we did the walk, at the end of that project, I stayed on with the director over there, Jake Black, to do a few other small things. And he ended up bringing me on full time. And so that kind of defined where I was going to go, because at that time, he really only wanted to dive into VR. And so my entire life became virtual reality development instead of video game development, which is much different. So I kind of fell into / created a job for myself.
Right.
It's worked out since.
And then Chris, the skills and the tools that you're putting together towards the end of the program, how did it lead you to the next opportunity?
Well, I kind of had like a identity crisis when I was going through school. I was just like, I think I'm going to be a rigger. And I did that for a little bit. And I was just like, man, I'm terrible at this. I don't know if I can do it. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to do like previs stuff, architecture. So I was like, that's kind of cool. I like buildings. And I just remember I was like having a hard time. So when we were doing the last 2 months, we were building a portfolio. I was like all over the place. I didn't even graduate with a demo reel, which was crazy. And probably not the best thing to say, but it's the truth. And I really did find myself when I just finally sat down, built another environment. And I was just like, this is I was like, this is what I want to do for sure. And you know, I was learning how to do materials on my own, shader work inside of Unreal. I don't know if you guys are using Unreal 4 at all, but so just really exploring after the fact. You know, I was working at Walmart, and then when we worked on the walk, I mean, it all kind of just came together. And I was just like, it doesn't matter what field, like environments is what I want to do.
Right. So, okay, let's get to that part. How did you get the walk? How did you guys get the opportunity to work on the walk?
So our what was that class that Rob taught? What was
Art
the name?
creation for games.
Yeah.
Art creation for games.
Yes.
So we created 3D environments for that class, and Rob had contacted me after we graduated and was like, hey, you know, I have a friend, and there's this gig, and I don't really know quite how to put it all together. You know,
Right.
Could you come over and we could meet Jake Black together and kind of work this out? And it all just kind of came together from that meeting.
Yeah, and actually, way before we actually got the job at Create, we had to do a preliminary build that we were working at home using GitHub and stuff like that. So we were using grayscale models. Yeah.
Forgot about
So like this was a pitch.
that was a pitch.
Yeah, because we had to prove that we could do it.
Right.
Because we had no experience.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was, yeah, we did that as like a.
I mean, we had like a T-man just walk like across the wire,
yeah,
you know,
that's right.
in VR. And it was all gray. Nothing looked good. But it sold, and yeah, then we got the
compelling.
3.5 month or 4 month contract.
4 months?
Yeah, to do the whole.
The whole
game.
thing.
Was there ever a moment that you thought when you're building sort of this pitch, you're just like, this sucks?
All the time, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
this
every
is-
time.
We're not going to get this opportunity.
Especially when you can't get GitHub to sync and everything's breaking. You're just like, dude, how am I supposed to ship this within fucking 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Excuse my language.
It's okay.
Yeah, definitely grayscale leaves a little to be desired, but I think in VR, even in grayscale, it's very compelling. Like if you get scale and everything right, it can feel very compelling just in grayscale.
That's true.
And we sold Spider-Man that way. It was all grayscale, and
Oh.
we just loved it. And so that's how that came.
So talk about the state of virtual reality at this time, right? So it's for, you guys are freshly grad, or you guys still in school?
We were,
No, we were out.
We
you guys were out, right?
We've done a few side projects together.
didn't we do
but-
the demo while we were in school
Yeah,
still?
You guys-
no, I was out.
No,
I'm
we
pretty
were
sure.
out.
Okay.
But it was less than a year.
But we were working on a dev kit initially, right? Was it a Vive dev kit?
No,
Well, you
we
had
were
it.
on a DK2.
We did have
That's
a
it.
We were on a
Oh, that's really
DK2.
old.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
very old.
So what's the state of virtual reality at this time? This is, what year is this?
It's very early.
2019.
Unreal doesn't really have support for it. We're kind of hacking it in.
You guys are on
through
Oculus, right?
Pete's expertise.
Oculus, right?
Oculus,
Yeah.
yeah. And, you know, everything, none of the lighting wanted to work. I think we ended up doing it all unlit or something like that.
Yeah, we
It was
couldn't
very
get it,
early.
Yeah, to run with dynamic lights, we had
It
to do
was-
everything baked lighting.
Yeah. And so,
You're in a time of the industry where VR is starting to, its first phase. You know, I'm looking at 3 different phases. So its first phase is starting to heat up, and there's not many experiences out there. You know, Oculus is the dominant, device out there. Vive's going to come next, but you guys are building all of this. How did they get the walk? Why did they choose that particular project?
I just think it was because it's such an interesting thing. Like I think Jake might have saw the movie, the original one, the documentary, and then I don't really know how it all came together. But they're like, "Hey, man, there's this guy who."
Because everyone wanted, VR was a new thing, it was a buzzword, so all the studios were trying to figure out how to use VR, and they still kind of are to a degree. But this was one project that seemed kind of like an obvious choice. It was like, okay, what can you get out of VR? Well, you can sell scale, you can put someone in a different place. So naturally, this movie was like, oh, we can put people on top of the Twin Towers. That's something that you can't really do in any other medium besides VR. So I think it was just an easy choice.
yeah, I think it just so happened to be. And at the time, Create's an advertising agency.
Right.
And so, Jake Black is always looking for ways to innovate and push that envelope and try to get the audience engaged. And so his vision was really, how can we engage our audience further with this content? And so, right from the beginning, he's always thought VR was a real good way to do that.
So just to give you guys context, the walk is a movie starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt about a Frenchman who walked between the Twin Towers of New York City, and this is 1977, I believe, in the 70s. And you guys recreated that experience in VR. So you guys are on the production, you guys are on this project, and how long is the entire, from beginning to end? How long is that entire project?
4 months.
4
and
months?
Maybe a couple
Okay.
days.
4 months.
I think art was a little less, but in, like the last couple of weeks was more like just getting performance and making sure it runs on like the kit on the PlayStation.
And so let's talk about that time, like that experience. I know now, and I always talk to our students now, you may not want to work with your close friends. They're just cool, but they may not be good workers. They may not want to work with you. How did you guys work that out? Or did you run into issues where it's just like, okay, now we're all working together and there's some clash, or maybe there isn't some clash, because you guys are getting up here, minus Peter, who's recovering from the day after. But you guys are getting up here like a rock band. You guys are still together. So what was those 4 months of production like, working together?
It felt a lot like school. I mean, because we gravitated towards each other so quickly, and we would always go to Lewis's tiny studio apartment with all of our laptops. He's folding up his futon, and we're just working and sculpting, and we'll do 1 hour sculpts. We'll just do whatever, and we joke and hanging out for hours on end. We did that through the entire 18 months, and then when it became into a professional realm or whatever, it was just fluid.
Yeah, it was the same thing.
Yeah.
So we all worked well together, and then we had a little bit of an issue with our leadership. But again, it was like we were a strong core, and so we just approached the leadership, and we're just like, hey, this isn't working out, and we were just really straightforward, and we all communicated really well, and we were able to we were successful in that nobody was really hurt by the end of it. We all just
we were able to say what was on our mind, and if there was a problem, we were able to discuss it professionally within each other. So.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right. We all get along so well that it just was really nice and fluid the whole time. There was hang-ups, and we all have disagreements of opinion and stuff like that. But overall, I think at the end of the day, we're all going to the same goal. So
Yeah.
it really worked out.
Yeah, I know my friends, that wouldn't have happened. So I envy you guys. All right, you get to the end, the project is done. You guys get your first single out, you hit the billboards, you guys are hot right now. Reality sets in, what's next?
Deep breath.
Yeah, what's next? How do you go from, all right, we finish off on the walk, you guys don't know it's going to win a Clio and all that stuff yet, but now how do you know it's going to, what do you do next? Because that wasn't a gig that was going to, hey, you're hired on, your salary, you're in a seat, that was just a gig. So, for me, leaving school, I would have said, I made it. Mom and Dad, I got the job. And, it's like 4 months later, well, this is reality. Go ahead, Greg. What happened next?
What happened next?
Yeah.
We took that success and we tried to find other work. Like Lou said, at the time, Create didn't have a lot of that on tap, right? That was a one-time thing. And obviously the success of that created an entire department, that has been successful ever since. But I think we all went out and just looked for other work off that success. And I know Chris found some place that he ended up.
Yeah, I got to work at MPC for 3 days. I got to work on the Martian VR. And that was actually through a connection with Peter. Peter had just wrote an email saying, I forgot what he was doing. He was like, oh, I passed the gig up because they didn't want to pay me enough, but I know an artist who wanted to work on it, and the recruiter reached out to me. I was just like, yeah, pay me. And so it was literally just from Friday to Sunday. I just made the interior of a spaceship, and then I was on my merry way. Yeah. And I was just trying to find stuff like that, and then I couldn't, and then I eventually took a job. I was applying everywhere. I was still new. And then I eventually found a job at an outsourcing company in Malaysia, which didn't pay well. And obviously it was in Malaysia, whole new territory, very scary. And I went there, and I was there for a year, and I got to ship 2 AAA titles, which was awesome. And even though I worked terrible hours, terrible pay, You know, I feel like the sacrifice of just, you know, even if you're like, oh, I made good money, now I'm making terrible money, but like that excelled my career because I made that one sacrifice.
Yeah, the projects you shipped were Capcom versus Marvel. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And Street Fighter 5, right? Yeah, that was that. Talk a little bit about the work that you did on those.
So I was basically a content artist. I did later, at the time I was leaving, did switch to a layout, blockout, environment artist. Yeah, so a lot of construction of the environments, a lot of the prop work, UV texturing, high poly, low poly, stuff like that. Kind of the whole process almost.
So from the time that the walk is over, how long what's the difference of time before you're working in Malaysia?
Oh, it was a long time. I actually had to take up. I was repossessing cars for a while. I did that for like 6 months, I think. So I mean, it's not gonna come easy. Like you gotta find work. You know, you gotta pay bills, and yeah, it took a while. And I was applying everywhere, and they're the first people to respond. And I just instantly just said yes.
And then Louis, you guys are done with the walk. Now reality sets in. What's the real world look like for you?
The real world is tough. But also, just before we move on from Chris, just from like an outside of you perspective, looking at Chris, after he came back from Malaysia, we were talking again, and we were both looking for work. And Chris was immediately hearing back from AAA studios. So like the importance of having that experience, there's the whole catch-22 that everybody's stuck in, right? You need experience to get the job, to get experience to get the job. So this is one way to do it. Like it worked out. Like you said, it wasn't fun, but it really worked. But I went about it a different way. I'm trying to remember, because I've done a lot of small jobs. So I just was it was a lot of word of mouth, and it was a lot of, I'm trying to remember, some of these jobs were really random, just stuff that I would find on Craigslist, or a lot of stuff from like Greg. We were always just like emailing each other stuff if we could find it. So building a little network of people that are cool with you and that can help you out is going to help you a lot. So I worked on a bunch of little stuff. But the important thing was that I leveraged the work that I did. So we worked on a VR project. So now we're technically VR artists. So that was a new thing at the time that other people weren't. And so finding the kind of niche of the space that you're in is really important. And leveraging whatever tiny little project you do is important too. So like I said, in the beginning, this project didn't win an award. It wasn't necessarily what it is now. But we were still applying and telling people like, hey, I worked on this project with Sony, you know, like, so use whatever you can get out of your project that you're working on.
All right, so you guys get to this next opportunity, and like Chris said, there was some ups and downs, or just more patience, right? Yeah. The industry is never going to be ready when you are. You know, you have to sort of prepare for that, and you also have to, you know, have enough patience for longevity. So you guys let's fast forward to where you guys are at now, today. So you left Malaysia, you come back, and what's your first opportunity, Chris?
So I think I was unemployed for 2.5 months. Got linked up with these guys, try to see what they were doing. Maybe, you know, join up with what they were doing. Try to get in his job, see if Create needed extra work. Obviously, nothing panned out, but you know, applied a ton. I think out of 60 applications, 5 rejections, and then like I got 2 responses. Then I was actually in between 2 jobs. There was ArenaNet and Beanox, which is in Canada. They do like Call of Duty stuff, and you know, Canada they pay a little bit less. So I took the job, and that's ArenaNet. That was over in Seattle, and that was like my first like. I mean, Create was good, but it was 3 months or 3 months of pay. And then this was my first salary job. You know, I was a full-time employee. And I was there for 2 years, basically doing similar stuff, game art. Unfortunately, nothing went anywhere. The project was stale. And I don't know if you guys heard, but they had a huge layoff, fired like 100 or 140 people. And I left like just months after that happened. So.
Oh, wow.
It's crazy. Like it's secret intuition or something.
So you mean prior to that? You left before it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
I left. Oh, prior. Yeah. My bad. But whatever. And then now I'm at Turtle Rock Studios. Been there for a little over a year, and I mean, once, like Lewis had said, once I had grabbed a AAA title, that just did this for me, you know, because they always said, "Oh yeah, that's a cool game," or "How was that?" And they're like, "Oh, I love Street Fighter. I've been playing it since I was whatever."
Right.
And some of the nostalgia of it during interviews always helps, and yeah, and then obviously your work is a huge component, but.
And then, Greg, you're the only one out of the 4 to go back to create. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then, so how did you get a chance to? How did that opportunity work out? How did you get a chance to get back to create?
So this is about a year after the wrap of the walk, and I'd been a production stage supervisor over with this company, doing some 3D for them, doing some VFX and stuff, but mostly just checking in and out hardware, for Vitruvian. And it wasn't paying really well. It was kind of like the guy was really rough around the edges, and he was hard to be around and stuff. So I was always looking for other stuff. And Jake Black just called me out of the blue, and was like, "Hey, you got a few months of modeling and texturing for this project?" And of course I said, "Absolutely. I'll be over there in an hour." And so I went over there, and it was Ghostbusters, and we ended up working on that and another one, and about halfway through Ghostbusters, I think, Jake took me aside and was like, "Hey, we need a full-time artist here at Create. Would you like that role?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely."
So why do you think that opportunity? Why do you think they gave you that opportunity?
He always says it's the work ethic. It just it doesn't matter what time of the day or night, or I drive 2 hours to work and 2 hours home. It's just showing up every day and just putting your nose to the grindstone and not letting up, not getting on Facebook or social sites or staring at your phone all the time. Save that stuff for lunch. Just work the job, work it hard. To show that you're there to work, and the higher ups will see that. That goes a long way with people.
So Louis, I've seen you go from like small indie startups. I met this guy up at I don't know what part of the neighborhood that is, closer to Chinatown and downtown, the brewery district. And I'm like, man, this guy is like heavily with these VR startups. And then I know through jumping through some of those, you get over to Nickelodeon for a little bit earlier this year, right?
Yeah, that was my first bigger studio, and it was funny because the second I had that on my LinkedIn, I got a message from a recruiter at Disney. So that's what I mean, like just having the one name on your resume, the one studio is kind of all it takes to just like legitimize you. And it's unfortunate because there's a lot of really good people that just need that little thing on their resume. They are legitimate, they are good, but you do need to figure out how to get that. And I got to Nickelodeon because Peter, the guy who worked with us on this project, he's just like, "Hey, I saw that they're hiring a VR artist." And again, that's just me leveraging the fact that I've worked on VR projects. Like as a VR artist versus a video game artist, there is a difference, but there's not that big of a difference. Like you're making, you're still making things that render in real time. So but on all of my LinkedIn stuff, it was VR artist. It was never just 3D artist. So like, leveraging that is what got me in at Nickelodeon. And I was doing digital production, which is kind of a new wave of things that I would suggest everybody, like VR was the new thing when we were graduating, and it allowed us to get into studios because they were looking for anyone with that experience. Digital production is kind of another wave that's coming up. So digital production, just for anyone that doesn't know, is using like a real world camera, moving around actors that are being mocap captured.
Did you guys use Dragonfly by any chance?
No, but I was talking to Joffrey about that. So it's a thing that now a lot of film studios are pushing for. Epic, as a studio, is pushing for anyone to use Unreal Engine to do digital production. They're putting a lot of money into it. So that's something that everyone should be aware of right now, is like you can get a job as a video game artist working on digital production. And that's what happened at Nickelodeon. And I was only there for like 5 months. And now I'm at another startup.
So talk about that. Talk about the place that you're at, and what's your title there?
So I'm the creative director, which is cool. So that means I'm making all of the creative decisions for the company. We're just 3 people working together. And I worked with them in the past when they were doing a VR startup. So again, it's very like, once you're in as a thing, just kind of grab onto it and run with it. And I worked with them for 2 years. I was the only artist at that VR studio. And so then fast forward to now, the same guy who ran that startup is doing a new startup, but this time we're making arcade games, which is a really weird, again, just like a tiny niche of the video game industry that not a lot of other people are doing or talking about, but we're trying to carve out our little piece of it. And so yeah, I'm doing all the management for.
That's awesome. I think it's great to say, because sometimes I ask you guys, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And some of you guys are like, I just want to do like something really cool. And I'm just like, no, then you can do that on your own time. I'm talking about career-wise. And to make creative director, you know, that means a lot, not just to have a title, but it means a lot from where they started. And hopefully you guys are understanding that, like, it's doable. It's not something that, you know, is 10 or 20 years away. It's actually doable to say, hey, I can take on the responsibility to do that. I'm so glad to hear your guys' story. I'm going to talk a little bit about get your guys' opinion on sort of the state of tools in the industry right now, because I know we have a lot of questions when it comes to like, hey, what should I be learning? Blender's starting to take off into studios. Should I be focused on this direction, or should I just, I can't believe anything I'm hearing anymore. Like, where should I be going? So what's your guys' thoughts on tools and the state of the industry right now? I'll start with Greg.
Tool guy.
Just a quick note. When we were in school,
Mm-hmm.
Greg was the guy who was like, "Hey guys, the software, it's dope. Learn it." And me and Lewis, we're kind of dicks. We're just like, "No, we're not gonna learn it. We're just gonna stick with Maya and ZBrush." And then Greg, 6 months later, "Hey, learn the software. This stuff is dope." I'm just like, "No, it's cool,
But
man."
for reference, what he was talking about was Substance Designer, Substance Painter,
Marvelous
Keyshot.
Designer,
Yeah.
Keyshot, yeah.
Dido, Endo,
Yeah,
which is now
all the
Quixel.
Quixel stuff, yeah. So,
Greg had like the demo version.
yeah, he had
of all
insight,
those.
yeah. He was like, I've been a subscriber to Designer since build 2.
Yeah.
And one, yeah. And then now that's primarily what I work in.
It does go back. I'll never forget you guys are probably too young to, even remember, but the Life cereal commercials, it's like, if Mikey likes it, it's really good cereal, and he was Mikey.
Yeah.
Mikey will eat anything. And, but he was testing out every tool. And sometimes, we don't see it as much in the program anymore, but there's two types of people. There's someone that has all the cracked copies of everything, but they've never used them. They just distribute them. And then there's someone who, has all these tools, and they're actively working on that stuff. And that was Greg. He was actively, even above our instructors, he was actively always working on something. Yeah. And, and I had mentioned today with you and Peter, Peter actually produced a book, If you look at his LinkedIn, you're going to look at, and like, this guy went here because we don't teach anything that he learned here, that he's going to, that's, part of his career. But he was just one of those guys that says, hey, thanks for showing me the foundation. I'm going to go with it because this is my personality. And I think Greg was the same way. He just said, here's the foundation. I'm going to go with it. Here's my personality.
So I think, honestly, the tools that we use today, there's so many ways to do it now, right? And there's so many tools that kind of do the same thing. But, just in my daily workflow, it's Maya, as a foundation, then Designer, and then ZBrush, and then Unreal Engine, because I render everything in Unreal. But I see our graphics department use Designer. These programs are starting to transcend just video games and starting to dig themselves into the VFX industry and the film industry. So I think, those programs are really important because they're what's leading us right now into the future.
So, Chris, you went to outsource and you looked at different studios. You had a different experience from what Greg was doing. So you looked at different studios.
Yeah.
Talk about the tools. Talk about state of the industry of how you've seen it in your journey. 5 years.
Sure. Yeah. So some studios are going to say, "Hey, we have this. You use this and only this." You're not allowed to branch out. That's kind of unfortunate because there's so many tools. They'd be like, "Oh, but if I use this, I can get it done twice as fast." We're like, no, we have a pipeline. Use it. There's a lot of studios where it's like, "Hey, we have every single software available. You can do whatever the hell you want," which is awesome because that's what you want. You want creative freedom over, even if you're not excited about what you're doing, you can use the tools and get excited about the tools. One thing that I've learned is that it also might not matter exactly what tools you're using. You want to be quick. You want to be reliable. Those are super important traits in a production that you want to have because people will see that. So if you're a great modeler, be a great modeler. Don't take forever. Don't slack on it. Be like, "Oh, I got 3 days for this prop, so I'm gonna take 3 days." No, just get it done. Get it done in a day because you can get it done in a day. People will see that and that'll excel your career for sure. Not to toot my own horn, but I'm already moving on to a different position at Turtle Rock Studios, and I've only been there for a year because of that. Good point Greg makes, like nose to the grindstone, be there to work. And because of that, switching roles, and it's going to be a great opportunity for me, and it could be the same for you too. So obviously know the tools, be current, things switch yearly, get the updates, learn everything, be a sponge,
Never stop learning.
Never stop learning. Yeah, I don't care.
Don't give up.
Yeah.
Never say never. Right now, you're like everything, every YouTube video, anything you can find off anybody that just looks cool, and you just want to learn that one little piece, that script that helps you get it done a little bit faster. Never give that up.
Yeah.
Keep that all through your career. Never stop learning.
Also share everything you know.
Yes.
Yeah. Don't hoard your information. Share the wealth. People notice that too.
So, one thing when you're in school, at least for me, I didn't get it because we didn't have social media, we didn't have the internet as we were on forums. When you hear like, "Oh, studios are closing," things are rocky, or you might hear a veteran like instructor or somebody say, "Oh, they have very few seats of this particular position." What can students expect about moving into the industry with that? I mean, there's always this moment of, they don't do that anymore. We don't have 2D animation studios like we did prior to 2003, but we still have 2D animation, and it looks different, and the process and pipeline is different. What are the things that you guys are noticing about the industry as these tools become much more efficient, the seats become less in certain positions? What does the industry look like for you guys?
Well, just for example, being at Nickelodeon was weird because I've only worked at game studios up until this point, and small game studios. So being at a big studio like that was really different. But they're all 2D animators. Like Nickelodeon employs hundreds of 2D animators, which today is a weird thing for me, at least. It was bizarre. But there's, so there's a whole group of people, and there's a union for them, and they all network together and have like all these meetups and stuff. So try to get into your community. So like, for example, we were just talking up here, like the ZBrush Summit's coming up. Because when those studios go down or people get laid off, immediately, when I usually find out that a studio is laying people off because I see a Facebook post from somebody else being like, "Hey, my friend over here is looking for work," or there's about 100, texture artists that are now available, so who's looking for texture artists? It is a really kind of like tumultuous, there's a lot of up and downs, but people seem to stay employed. So just not getting too down about losing your job. I've worked for so many different companies now, and sometimes it's been like I've been almost out of money, and like just something comes through. So something will come through. It will just take a certain amount of time. So be smart too about your money, because you need to plan for like a drought. So I think that's an important.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at your guys, especially with Peter not being here, but Greg, you went on to stay with Create, and then Chris, you went overseas, and then you're like Mr. Startup guy, Mr. Indie guy, and it could be scary.
Yeah.
Because you're like, all right, cool, I'm here, but how long are they going to be here for?
Yeah, the last 3 studios I worked for went under. And that's including Nickelodeon. Obviously, Nickelodeon is still alive, but the division that I worked for is no longer there. So just be aware that kind of stuff can happen. So like, even though you're comfortable in your job and it's awesome and you've got friends and stuff, be always on the lookout and keep your portfolio up to date and make sure you're always looking hireable at any moment.
Okay, guys, what I want to do is open the floor and let you guys ask a few questions. I know I've asked some questions, and hopefully that sparks some interest, but and don't do this thing where you guys, I don't have any questions, and then lights are off, and there's like, I have my own questions. These questions that you ask actually help everybody. Who wants to go first? Who has a question here? Yes, Kevin.
What was the what did you say that you want? The AAA?
Just AAA studios. So that's like any studio that's making a major hit game that like people are gonna know about. So any studio that's working on like Call of Duty's, Halo.
I thought AAA was because they're owned by higher.
You know better than I do.
Build this.
Captain Mr. AAA.
No, yeah, so I think the difference between AAA and indie, like Turtle Rock, I don't know if you guys heard, they made Left 4 Dead and Evolve. They're technically a indie studio because no one owns them, right? So like Call of Duty, Activision, you know, who owns Activision? Is it?
Well, Activision and Blizzard.
Blizzard and Activision.
Oh, Blizzard.
together.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's the main difference. Like I worked at ArenaNet, and ArenaNet, even though they have like a sugar daddy situation with NCSoft, they're still technically a indie studio, or not indie, but you know, their own entity, even though they had like 400 employees.
It could, I mean, it also could come down to sales of their product as well, because Insomniac just recently got acquired by Sony, but they made Ratchet, they made Spider-Man, all purely on contract.
Yeah,
you know?
so I may have been incorrectly using that term, AAA.
No, I think it's right. I say it the same way.
Yeah, just big studios. Got it, yeah.
You had something more to your question, Kevin?
Where can we find the walk?
You could.
Is it available somewhere?
Yeah, I think you can actually go to the Create website. And
Greg, you would know better, right?
I saw it up there.
I should know this,
Yeah.
but
Oh, you don't?
yeah, that's where I found the video.
I don't know
Yeah, that's where I got the Vimeo video.
the video. But are,
Yeah.
But can
are you trying to do the walk in VR? Or are you
Or
just
just wanna
trying to
see
like
content?
see some content from it?
Uh,
Oh yeah, createvr.com.
do you have the images on your portfolio?
I think so.
Yeah, so if you Google either our names on our station, you should be able to see some
Oh, yeah.
renders and videos and promotions they all did, you know.
Yes, Kevin.
Just FYI, for anybody who wants to get into VR, on Wednesday, we have a gear day going on in the Brain Lobby, and we actually have this company called Virtual Room, which is a virtual experience up on Hollywood Boulevard. They're bringing a version of their game to the Brain Lobby. You guys can play for free. Plus, going to raffle off 2 sets of 4 tickets to the full experience. But more importantly than that, they are in need of product. They are so successful, and they have a studio. They're based in France, but the talent in France is at a premium right now. And so they're looking around for artists who can come in and help build new experiences for them. So this is a great opportunity to meet these folks, VR and Geo, talk to them, and then see what you can maybe see what they need. Maybe go get it while you're ready. They're going to need you, and you can get into the VR world. That's what you're looking to do. So Wednesday from 10 to 5, we're going to be in the Brain Lobby. That was a commercial.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Kevin.
You said that you applied to or sent a lot of like your resumes and all that. Did you use LinkedIn or like where?
I used everything. So if I saw jobs on LinkedIn, I used LinkedIn. If I saw, some websites will have their own like application, which is super weird. But yeah, all forms, doesn't matter. Even if it's like, hey, copy and paste this email and write us an email. Like I applied that way too. So yeah.
Yeah, I got stuff up Indeed as well, but like, yeah, like Chris said, it's everywhere. Anywhere you see a job posting, just get at it.
Yes, sir.
Outside of like YouTube, what would you recommend to use to keep an eye on what's coming up, trending, and where to learn things from?
Besides YouTube, see, we used to have digital tutors and stuff like that, but there's nothing like that much anymore. I kind of lean on those small streaming services that offer like small courses
Well,
and
what's-
like designer and stuff like that. That's how I keep current. Huh?
Or like CGMA and even
There's
our
a
station
ton
has
of
like
them now.
new content.
There's so many. Daniel Tiger just put one up
Yeah.
on this streaming service that only
Get
has like a
Learned.
handful. Yeah,
Yeah.
like Get Learned or something like that. And I bought that one. I've been doing that one the last few weeks, and I work, all week, every week. And
Yeah.
What was that? One more
Udemy.
Are you Demi?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Demi? Yeah. They're all right. Some are obviously better than others, and you'll understand that as soon as you get through like a couple of the lessons, and you'll go, oh, right, this is a very beginner level stuff,
Or I think the best thing to do too is find an artist that you like and start following
Yes.
them.
Yeah.
Because they'll post like, hey, I'm doing a workshop here, or I'm doing something online. Sometimes it's in person, but there's like we're talking about. We just listed off like 5 different ones that you could be
Yeah.
looking at. So they're everywhere, but look for an artist because the quality of the course is going to be based on the artist teaching.
Definitely.
One thing too. Oh,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, what other events would you recommend going to? Because I don't know any of the events that are going on.
I don't go to many, but yeah, if I live far, I'm not in the greater Los Angeles area, so.
The
What are you
ZBrush
into?
one is the big one.
Which one?
ZBrush
Yeah, well, it
Summits.
depends
Well,
on what
there-
you're into.
Yeah, there was Lightbox 2 weekends ago that I heard was great for networking.
Substance also does a
Yeah, Substance Days.
Oh, there's like GDC,
Yep.
SIGGRAPH.
Yeah, I highly recommend if you're in digital painting. Yeah, so go to every event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go to every event because you don't know your identity. Even if you say I came into the program and I want to be an animator, I guarantee 36 months, 33 months from now, you're going to be, you're going to fall in love with like 2 or 3 other things. Or you're going to be really skilled at other things. But what these guys are giving you a background on is, going to these events and talking to other professionals and talking to other peers doing the same thing that you're doing opens everything up for you. It gives you much more broader perspective on how to do this. And for, what I always tell the students here, you live in Los Angeles. Even if you're not from here, you live in Los Angeles. We get E3. E3 doesn't go overseas, they have their own, but it's E3 here. We get SIGGRAPH. We just got Lightbox Expo. We got DCon or DesignerCon and CTN. We have a lot of events, VRLA, a lot of events that happen here. If you're in, another state, another city, it could be very tough for these companies to fly out there and host that event, or you're watching everything online. So, just the fact that you guys are here for this event is important. You want to make sure you go to every event to find out, narrow out things like, I just don't like this, but I'm glad I went, but I network with someone. ZBrush Summit is at the end of this month, so I believe it's the weekend of the 28th, and please talk with me afterwards. I still need 10 volunteers for ZBrush Summit. 10 volunteers for ZBrush
Do
Summit.
that.
Yeah, we all did that.
Yeah.
If you're into digital sculpting at all, volunteer.
I need 10.
And bring a notebook and
Yes.
write
I'll-
everything down.
And talk.
Also, I've used
Don't be shy.
Meetup before.
Meetup.
And they'll be small. It'll be like stuff like this, maybe even smaller. But I met some like super cool people. It'd be like, oh, VR, and then it's like 6 people. We went to one, right?
Yeah, I went to one. It's called the Inland Arts. It's it's a different school, but they bring in really good artists, and they have people come out, and then sometimes they do like a drink and draw afterwards. I met a dude from Blizzard there who I would occasionally send work, and he would give me feedback, and we still kind of keep in touch. So creating respectful professional relationships with other artists. You don't want to bug them, they're busy, but they can give you feedback, and a lot of them are willing to, as long as you're cool about it. Don't be annoying.
Yeah, I've messaged a lot of guys on ArtStation,
Yeah,
and about 80% of them get back to me.
And messaging them isn't annoying, but if they don't message you back, just let
Yeah.
it chill. Don't be like, why didn't you get back to me? or anything
Right.
like that.
And I know, actually Louis over the years has reached out and says, hey, I need another artist for this thing I'm working on. And he's been willing to help that particular person out. And I think you just recently did that, right?
Yeah, Kevin. Kevin, I just brought him onto the team, and he worked with me for the past 2 months on the latest game that I made.
What's his last name?
Rodriguez? Yeah.
Oh, Kevin Rodriguez. Yeah.
Yeah, my
Man,
bad.
That guy's
Sorry,
sharp,
Kevin.
man. Yeah.
But he's awesome. He's super good. So I will probably always come back when I'm looking for people. So yeah, just stay connected.
That just shows he's like, hey, I don't know your name. You're just another guy.
Yeah.
You get my coffee.
Make this model.
Yeah. We take pictures, make it look like you did some stuff. Another question. Zach.
Hey guys, thanks for coming down. My question is more directed towards Chris, but any of you have had experience with the subject, please weigh in. But so I followed your portfolio for a while. I've seen your transition from designer to mixer plus designer. And my question is kind of a weird one, but it was about what's your point of view on the legitimacy of using mixer in the industry? Because I think it's a great software, used it before, but it's not really mainstream yet.
Sure.
In a way. And do you think that comes from the fact that people view it as something they can't get credit for, right? Because you are kind of just, I mean, at its foundational level, if you're not in the studio, at its foundational level, you're using the mega scans
Right.
to kind of mix things, right?
Mhm.
What's your point of view on that? Do you view it as something you can take credit for, or is it more of a gray area?
I definitely think you can take full credit for it. I mean, you're using the tool because of the tool, regardless if you're using their scans or you're importing your own materials and stuff like that. I mean, you're creating art, right? And you're storytelling, or you're using it for a certain thing, or your look dev. So there's so much value to that tool. And yeah, I would always take, even if I used all scans, I would take credit for it. I mean, I wouldn't say I made the material or the materials I used, but I did the blending. I told the story. So yeah, I would definitely take credit for that. And I have. I just opened it, and it was pretty cool. I don't like the UI. I think it's garbage, but yeah, I think it's pretty awesome. Like some of the stuff it can do.
We're sponsored by Substance 3D, just like you.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, I love Designer. Yeah, it's my favorite tool.
But also, like, in production, fastest wins. It doesn't matter, like, you're not,
Doesn't matter.
you know, everything you're making, I think we all think of it like, oh, we're artists, we're making, you know, this
Yeah.
perfect rock texture. It's like, no, that's just, or that's going to be thrown on the ground.
Yeah.
Player's going to walk over it. So to a certain, of course, it does matter, and the time you put in will be, you know, appreciated, but you also have to understand that you just got to make a deadline. So,
Yeah.
like, yeah, if you mix a few, like, pre-made things together, it's still you, it still takes your touch, and it's not always about, like, your masterpiece. It's
Yeah.
about getting it done.
One thing that I've learned, you know, in the past almost 6 years is that it doesn't have to be done by scratch anymore. Like,
Yeah.
we would always be like, oh, I'm gonna learn lighting, but let me make this environment first.
Right.
Right? Like, I'm not gonna, like, I was like, I'm never gonna download an environment to light. I was like, that's dumb. Like, the whole aspect is to light, go find a model that's free, light it, you know? Because you'll be modeling, you're like, oh shit, I gotta do light maps, I gotta do all this other processes that take forever, and then you never get to the lighting, which is why you did the project in the beginning.
Right.
So that happened a lot. So
Gary, you had a question.
I just wanted to ask you guys, digital sculptors or background environment artists, folks that's here, do you have any tooltips for unwrapping? It's basically one of the main obstacles that I've seen in production classes. Did you take it to a third party?
It's funny
Straight
because
Maya?
we've been talking about this recently. We've all transitioned to just using Maya's Unfold now. It's so good. Like, it used to be trash, and we're always using Hedis or something else.
Right. But I think years of using Hedis gave us that that foundation for knowing what shapes unwrap well. You know, when you cut it a certain way and it's going to pelt out, you kind of get that language, right? You develop it like an alphabet, and you're like, oh, okay, this thing unwraps like this. This thing unwraps like that. And even if it's a more complex version of that, like a shirt or something else, you still already know where those lines should land. And so now, you know, after we've been doing this for a long time, you can do that in Maya. Just, you know, do it by camera, go into the 3D view, select all your lines, cut them. You know, it works a lot similarly nowadays as to where, you know, Maya before was a pain. So
Yeah, we've
just use Maya.
been using so many less, like, third-party programs for the modeling part now. Like, I don't use TopoGun anymore. Like, not using UV Layout or Hedis. But now all the texturing is third-party, you know. I mean, it was always in Photoshop, but yeah.
ZBrush has great flattening or pelt tools. So if you create all your seams and stuff in Maya, bring it into ZBrush, and it'll give you like some of the best like textile density. But then you got to, third party. Yeah. Hot tip.
Questions? All right, guys. So yeah, Dean Stiles back there.
So I got a question. I talk to some students about this on a regular basis, but I don't think all of them believe me. And maybe you have experience with this, and you're backing up, but if you can't, then hey, you guys got different experiences than I do.
Yeah.
So say there's two different types of artists in the studio. Maybe you've had experience with this or not, but one artist comes in, doesn't talk to anybody, sits at his computer, does all his work, but he just sits there all day unless he has to go to the bathroom or goes to lunch. You forget he's even there, maybe, don't remember his name. Versus an artist who comes in, he sits down, he's working, and he does all his work. He's like, hey man, did you see that new Skyrim trailer? And you guys are working, and hey, did you see Toy Story 10 this weekend? Hey, did you, versus the guy who just sits there and does the work, doesn't talk to anybody. Have you had any experience with any artists that don't talk to anybody in studios and how their job prospects work out?
Like antisocial artists versus social artists?
Yes.
And I mean, in my experience, you have to be able to talk to people. You have to be able to get along with people. And if you can't have conversations that aren't outside of work, you're going to have a hard time having conversations that are about work. You have to be able to collaborate with people, especially in the art team. If you're a programmer or something, you're going to do a lot of that by yourself. And you're probably not going to talk to anybody because your brain isn't on that same level. You guys, artists, programmers, they don't generally think the same way. So, those conversations are a little more labored, but I think in the art team, just because I'm in the art team, I think communication is very important, because you want to know what this guy's thinking. You're going to pass this stuff off to him, and you don't know what he's going to do with it unless you guys are on the same page.
My experience with layoffs happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if I got Jack sitting down here in the corner, and I've never had a conversation with him, I got Rob sitting over here, and we have lunch together every day. And
You're gonna hire Rob,
he
yeah.
says, "Who do you want to lay off?"
Oh yeah,
Yeah, no,
I just
100%.
experienced that this year.
Well, I think you end up spending quite a bit of time with these people. I mean, there were times in the studio that I'm like, wow, I spend more time with these people than in my own family. So, either you're sitting in a dark cubicle with headphones on and looking at a screen and never saying anything, you go crazy. So you sort of do end up saying, how is your family doing? That relationship is just, it's either very organic and natural, and I'm sure you guys are experiencing that. But there's very few people I saw that never said anything. They didn't really hang out with too many people. But in the interview, the next interview, they're not getting hired. It's less likely that they're getting hired for a long-term position because they're not saying too much. They're not giving much more to the team outside of skill set. There's a whole bunch of people that can use Maya. There's a whole bunch of people that can use these tools. But the thing that you're bringing to the team is that personality. Like, hey, this person's great. You're going to love it. Every time I bring on a new instructor, I'm like, you guys, he fits right in. He or she fits right in. You guys, that's usually the case. But if someone's just like, I've never seen this guy outside of teaching.
Yeah.
I don't know what he does with his life.
Yeah, and I think all my jobs have been word of mouth.
Yep.
There's only like 2 jobs that I applied for, kind of like cold turkey, and got. If you know someone at a studio, you're so much more likely to get in.
Yeah, I only had one interview for ArenaNet, and that was over the phone. They didn't fly me in. It was a 20-minute conversation with the art lead, and then when I got there, he was just like, "Yeah, I mean, I know you can make art, but like your personality is what sold me." He's like, "I can tell he seems like a good guy. He's very confident when he talks. He's comfortable. He's not afraid to go off topic or make a tangent and be like, oh yeah, I love Alien." And it's like, yeah, and I got hired not solely, but like personality is huge. So if you're a dick, you're not going to get a job.
Yeah,
Yeah,
don't burn bridges.
Yeah.
We've experienced that too. I've heard Jake say before. I'd rather have a guy that's easy to get along with and sits down, does his work, and he's social and everything, than some hotshot who comes in and thinks he's everything and doesn't want to talk to anybody and is hard to get along with. I'd fire that guy first or never let him through the door. And so,
Yeah.
kind of, yeah, just like if you're not easy to work with, you're not going to go anywhere here. You could have mediocre skills and still have a job as long as you're easy to work with.
You get better anyways.
You do get better. I mean, dude, production, look, you can learn a million things at school, but production for 1 year is going to teach you everything.
Yeah.
You know, just being in a production setting, having those deadlines, having somebody else count on your work and keep those balance and checks, you're going to learn so much in that first year. It's just insane. It's insane.
Kevin.
Do you guys use social media to your advantage, like to promote your work and like network with other people?
Starting to.
I don't.
I am actually in the beginning of, or I'm starting that process. I'm trying to create a brand for myself. Right now, I'm trying to do live stream tutorials, and I'm slowly getting in there. So it's going to be interesting. I don't have a lot of information because it's been like a month. So I think it's huge because I look at someone like Anthony Jones. I don't know if you know him, but he's on all platforms, and he still has time to make art. He has time for his family, but like people know him just because of Robot Pencil, all of his online stuff. I mean, he has 100,000 followers on Instagram or whatever it is. Like, that's insane.
Yeah, just like a quick story. So I worked at the previous studio I was at. I had a really good art director. This guy's super awesome, and like nobody knew about him. And I was like, why don't you have an Instagram? Like, why don't you post your art? He like posted on Twitter, I think. But I was like, man, why put your stuff on Instagram so I can see it? I was like, I just want to be able to follow your art. And he was like, no, I don't do that. I don't do that. Talking about how it's like waste of time. Yeah. And then he finally got one, and he immediately got a shout out from like a big artist. I don't know if anybody knows Joe Maduro. So he shouted him out because they were friends, and he immediately got like 14,000 followers now, and we all got laid off. And now he's working, he just does paintings for comic book covers, which was like his dream job. So it was interesting because he's a really good artist. He's worked in the industry for years, and he was like relatively unknown. And all it took was him actually posting his art on social media, the right social media, and now he's doing his dream job. So that's not to say that you posting your schoolwork on Instagram is going to get you a job or anything, but the idea is like that you can self-promote, and it isn't a waste of time, and you should be thinking about it. But don't think it's going to give you instant success or instant fame. It's a lot of work.
And make sure you keep in mind that it's just a tool. I try to I limit all of like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. I make sure I spend no more than 30 minutes. So I want to use it as a tool. It's to build a brand. Chris Evans is a brand that I'm trying to make. So keep it limited. Maybe keep your personal and professional, if you have two accounts, separated. I don't know.
Really quick, guys, I'm going to allow questions afterwards. I know that I want to get everyone else back to class, so let's give a big hand to our guests. And we have another panel on Wednesday. So I'll be inviting you guys back at that time as well. So make sure you guys come out to that. That's another alumni for his work with Disney and the work that he's done here. So make sure you guys come back. So for instructors who have classes, go ahead and get your guys. Allow the other students to come back and talk to the alumni and network and get a chance to know them. And for everyone else who's going back to class, make sure you guys go back to class. Don't dip out. I'll get that email, 30%. I mean, you're going to have a conversation. All right, guys. Thank you for coming out.
And real quick, we got a raffle.
Oh, we got a raffle.